Awesome. All right, welcome to Brisbane Azure User Group. So big turnout tonight, so that's good. Everyone must be here to see you, Adam.
Or they were thirsty.
Okay, so this is being recorded. These microphones are really good at picking up all sorts of conversations that you don't want to hear on the recording. So just keep that in mind, or not. You know, that's okay. We all want to laugh.
Yeah.
We do reshare.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good idea.
It's not coming through in Teams.
Yeah, it's not coming through on Teams.
It was before.
It was, yeah. Maybe just reshare.
Is it because I'm in the meeting?
Maybe.
Okay. Make sure that you're actually getting.
So that's it.
Okay, it's working now.
Okay. The slide's not up on the screen yet. This slide.
Oh,
They should. There they are.
cool. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So February, if you're here for a different month, it's a bit disappointing. But if you're here for February, we've got good news. Before we get too far along, big thank you out there to our sponsors. So thank you very much for Codify and thank you very much for Microsoft. So these guys help us put together the beer, the pizza, the room, and it's great to have that support. So if you're looking for people, look there. This is a community event, and we really value participation from everybody. We don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily need to be the latest, the greatest. We'd love to hear your stories about how you're using Azure. Could be anything. It really could. Just those users, those experiences of people using Azure really helps other people in the community understand what they can do, what works, what doesn't work. You don't have to have a successful outcome, probably helps. But, you know, we welcome anything, and all conversations around ideally Azure is really great for this community. So if you've got a topic, you've got something you want to share with us, we've got an email address down there. Flick us a link to that email. Just send us an email. We'll have a chat. We can get you up there. We've got a few people at the moment. We've got a few more people that I didn't put on there. But let's go. Like, send something in. Job opportunity. I'm going to flick this over to Dan.
Okay, so Deloitte's probably most famous for its auditing business and tax and legal advice. But actually, the biggest part of the company is the consulting business, and we definitely have a very, very strong technical team and a very strong Azure technical team as well. But we're always looking for new talent because we've got a lot of big clients and things that are rolling in all the time. So yeah, if you're looking for a new challenge and you think you've got any of those skills and you would like to have a chat with us, have a chat with me, or you can scan either one of those QR codes, or you can memorize that email address. Fine, but yeah, definitely, we'd love to.
They're great people over there. They're really friendly. They help.
Don't judge by me.
Yeah, so they're great people. Check it out. All right, so just a few updates before we get on to the main event. A couple of things changed with Azure Firewall. There's been a few things dropped. You can do customer provided public IPs now. That's probably the big change. There's a few other things that have happened in Firewall over the last couple of weeks, but that's probably the big one. Front Door has got new private link connections that it can now do. I did put it there. That's lucky. So it's application gateway, API management, and container apps has been included in that previously released front door private link endpoints that it was have already been released for things like app service, internal load balancer, and all those things. Well, they're just extending it. Interesting note, I was talking to Adam about this. There's a whole big disclaimer saying don't use these for production. They haven't really done that before in the past, and the service has kind of already gone GA. So it's like, I don't understand what's going on there, but that was different. So just go careful on these. Databricks clean rooms. So that went into preview quite a while back, and now it's coming into GA. So this is where you can actually bring your information into a shared space between organizations and share that information, run calculations across that information, and have the results come back to those participating organizations. It's a pretty cool feature. Azure Application Gateway, custom error pages. So previously you were already able to do custom error pages on Application Gateway. This is extending those errors that you can actually have custom error pages for, just adding a few extras. This one's pretty cool, and I'll apologize right now for the diagram that you're all looking at, because it's kind of wrong, but it's kind of relevant. Amazon AWS API Gateway can now be enrolled in API Center. So this is just like APIM, you can enroll that into API Center. Well, now they're extending that into Amazon as well. So if you have that organization that's multi-cloud, you've got APIs hosted in different clouds, well, you can surface that information and have the discovery portal across all of your landscape. That's pretty cool. All right. Couple of resources that we talk about. We've got Slack, we've got YouTube. There's some training resources there, some great blogs. A blog that I look at a lot is John Seville. I'm sure everyone knows who that is. If you don't know who that is, have a look on YouTube. It's pretty good. He does a lot of deep dives into Azure. He talks about the updates as well, so you might get something slightly different. Tonight, without any further ado, I want to introduce Adam. So I've known Adam for quite some time now.
Too many years.
Too many years. So Adam, and we were just talking like not that long ago, Adam did a photobomb. Do you call it a photobomb?
A demo bomb.
A demo bomb. He was here one night, really late in an Azure group, and he's come running in with a hard hat, a red work safe vest, and he's gone, I've got a demo for you. And that was the, at least half of that Azure user group was in.
And that actually ties in really, because that would have been
at
AI
least
4 or 5 years ago.
I think so.
Like that was, yeah.
Yeah. So just to continue the theme.
Nice intro.
We've got Adam
nice
presenting AI.
Thanks, mate.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone, for having them. Still, now, do I need something?
You need to plug in again.
Plug in?
Or actually, you're using that plugin. Sure.
No, I can plug in.
Well, it doesn't.
That's my power.
Oh, that's your power. Okay, yeah.
Though, so that will be all good.
Hopefully that moves it.
I don't think it's all the way here.
It is. Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for having me. I'm good. Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for coming along this evening. I'm Adam. I am the AI lead at Agile Insights. So I've been there about 12 months, and I get to wake up every day, and all I've done for 12 months is build AI applications, which is a pretty sweet gig to be doing right at the moment. So I've built about a dozen apps, pretty evenly spread across public sector government accounts, university, education, and health. So we're talking, big enterprise, lots of oversight, lots of hoops to jump through. And really that's what I want to talk about tonight is, I don't have a machine learning background. I'm a developer background, Azure background. And what are the lessons I've learned actually shipping enterprise AI apps out really broadly since I've been at Agile Insights. Before I was at Agile, I was at Microsoft for about 7 years. And, AI is not new to Microsoft. So I'd actually forgotten about that night. And that was back in the early cognitive services days. And I was staying back late, and Microsoft had released Custom Vision. And I had this great opportunity at a big engineering company. So I stayed back with Val, who's also one of my ex-Microsoft colleagues. And we'd gotten a hard hat, and we'd gotten a vest, and we'd literally gone and stood up against the window and taken a bunch of photos of me with no hat, no vest, just wearing the hat, just wearing the vest, wearing them together, and trained an image model, 4 or 5 years ago, uploaded it, and then was able to go and do detection because this engineering company was interested in how can we put safety cameras on our equipment and our doors to make sure people don't come through this door without wearing the right gear. So that was years ago. And I think it's worthwhile calling out, these conversations aren't new. Microsoft's been in this space without needing to be a data scientist or get right deep into machine learning. The cognitive services have been around for a long time. Like we've had these capabilities, but it's the LLMs and large language models that all of a sudden have taken the capabilities to the next level. And I'm deliberately staying away from agents tonight because what we're capable of now, and I've got to stop now before I go off my own, get myself too excited. What we're going to be looking at the end of this year is going to make what we're doing today is incredible compared to what we're doing 12 months ago. The growth we're going to see in the next 12 months is going to be out of this world. So the next 12 months is going to be super incredible. So 7 years at Microsoft as a application AI innovation specialist. Before then, I was on the tools for about 20 years, actually writing code. And I've been lucky enough to program with a couple of people in the room. But, my background was I did a lot of web dev. I did DOS dev and I did Windows dev, and then I did web dev. And that's part of this story is I'm not a history of it as a data scientist or with machine learning. And when I came to building AI apps, like this is actually a pretty standard kind of a simple architecture that, a lot of AI apps, kind of have around, especially if you're going to get Microsoft accelerators. There's some kind of front end. It's often in React. There's some kind of API. And then there's some kind of data source. If you're in the Azure space, you're probably going to go and look at Azure AI Search, which is loosely and under the covers, some storage. And then you're talking about OpenAI, which at the end of the day is just an API endpoint. I look at this and I'm like, that's my stuff. That's my stack. What could go wrong with this? There's not that much to learn. And honestly, there's not. Like when I'm hiring, I'm not looking necessarily for people with a whole lot of AI experience. You can get, and this is, I think my moral of the story tonight is for people who may not be in the AI space yet, is what are the lessons learned that get you from where I was to where I am now, and what the pain was and what I think the important things to take away are. And I wasn't new to AI. When I was at Microsoft, I've been talking about and helping customers implement AI for about 5 years before I left. But it's different when you're talking about things and helping people do things as opposed to when you've got to do them yourself. So that's what I wanted to talk about today is, most AI apps today share like 90% of their architecture with a modern web app. But why do so many AI projects fail? So this is I'm lucky enough that I've avoided them failing, but that's, I think, from a, good web dev practices, really good agile, managing expectations really early, failing early and correcting. And what do you need to be successful is what I want to talk about today. We've kind of moved past this, but the number one reason why I see organizations failing with AI is not actually understanding the potential. And we talked about some use cases like early tonight outside. Some people in some organizations are still not interested, not going to do it, too much risk, don't want to bring it in, we'd rather force it out. I think that's changing. But lack of buy-in is still the number one reason why it's failing. There's someone who can see the potential, but organizationally, whether it's through risk or it's through cyber. I was on a call today where the CIO was on the phone with me going, talk to me about data sovereignty. Are you going to be using our data to train your models? All of those kind of things are still real concerns. So, there's excellent answers, and there's, the organizations I'm working with are the most risk-adverse organizations out there, apart from maybe FSIs. But, Azure is great. There is an absolute rock-solid story around security and AI in Azure. But what I'd say is for organisations where if you think I am hitting walls, I can't get the excitement happening, prove value fast. Go and find someone who's got a real use case. And this is in general that go and get some data that someone cares about that has a problem with. Load it into Copilot, ask the right questions and let them see how quickly they can get an answer that's not a generic answer, but that's going to be a specific answer that's going to add value and accelerate their day-to-day work. And that's how we get buy-in. So I did a lot of that at Microsoft, and we're still doing that a lot. When I have a lot of people reach out to me now and go, I know this is going to be important for our organization, but I'm hitting these blockers. And usually getting the right person to give you 20 minutes of attention, you can show them something that makes them go, oh, how do we not do that? On the other end of the scale, this is the biggest risk and things where I think it go wrong is there's the people who aren't excited enough about AI, but then there's the ones that go, I've used ChatGPT, I've been reading on LinkedIn, AI can do anything. And they bring you in and they, and this is from a consulting point of view, what goes in the contract around AI is really important. You need people who understand what AI can do before you let them anywhere near a contract, because otherwise some crazy stuff can get in there. But people think AI is magic, and it can do amazing things. Surely it can do this. And understanding those boundaries is really a lot of the things I'm going to talk about tonight is where are those boundaries that if you're designing systems, if you're working with customers, if you're going to build something yourself, the boundaries that you need to get your head around to make sure the system works effectively is really important. And way more than in building other kinds of applications, communicating, I've never had to explain to non-technical stakeholders what was happening under the hood so much as I do with AI applications. So taking away the magic and letting them understand what's going on has really helped. A big part of that is just understanding large language models. I still find that people don't get LLMs. They don't understand what LLMs do well. They don't understand what the current LLMs do not do well. I love the current there. How RAG has anyone, so can I just do a show of hands? Who's got a data science or machine learning background first? There's a couple, only a couple. Excellent. Because you guys are the next level, and thanks for a large part of what I'm doing is working with our data teams and our machine learning teams. I'll come to why you guys are so important in a little bit, but that's excellent because so machine learning, who's built an AI application? Who's built something that uses a large language model? A few. Has anyone shipped one to production? A couple. Great. Okay. Awesome. That's really good. Who's built a RAG application, or who knows what RAG is? A few halves. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So it's just really good to get that understanding. Now, I'm sure everyone here understands how a large language model works. I find these next couple of slides, and I know we're an Azure event. It's a technical event. The things that have saved me the most pain that I've come back to are my non-technical slides for getting stakeholders and the people I'm building the systems for to understand how it works. And it has turned I've gotten halfway through a project, created these slides for another project, and then gone back through my 3 other projects that I was running at the same time, because I'm like, this is going to fix the problems I'm having in these other projects. Understanding, does anyone want to explain to me how they think an LLM works? So that's actually putting people on the spot.
You typically give, in the prompt, you will be giving some text in English language that gets converted into tokens. The tokens are actually embedded into a vectors format, multiple vectors with your multiple head and dimensions and all together. And that's what the encoder does it. After that, that encoder feeds into your decoder in the middle. And then you also give the same input to the decoder so that it can predict the next element or the next word out of it. I'm putting it in a very simple word, but it has a lot of layers of it. But this is how I have understood.
No, that's and that's my understanding as well. But that's why this is why you need someone who's with a machine learning background. So thank you very much. I explain, that's not how, so that's awesome and how you explain it to developers. How I display, this is how I explain it to non-developers is it's like Wheel of Fortune. So, and I think this is really important, is what an LLM does, that's what it does. But what it looks like it does is it predicts the next, it's really the next token, but it's like it predicts the next word. It's like the game show where everyone comes in and they go, it's a lovely day, I want to go to the, and then we take a vote of the audience for what the next word is. And then based on survey results, we come up with beach or park are probably the two most likely answers. They're probably the two most likely by a long way. So if we ask the same question 10 times, we might get 60% of one, 40% of the other. Yeah? What we can do is we can come along and it's really, so it's a probability engine. It's a next best word, next best token answer. If I give it a little bit of context, if I come along and say, hey, I live on the Gold Coast, it's a lovely day, I want to go to the, I'm going to go to the beach. If I come along and say, hey, I live in New York City, it's a lovely day, I want to go to the park. The context makes a big difference. What I do then is I come along and then I say, let's make this a bit more LLM-y. I'm going to give it some background. And we call the background of the instructions we give it the system message. So we can give it a system message like, you're a helpful information kiosk for a small shopping centre. You've got access to information about the shops. Only reply for answers that you know about. If you can't find an answer, suggest the user contacts the information desk. And then you give it the context. There are two large retail stores and a shopping centre, Target and Coles. There's an information desk. There's an outdoor kids playground that's got benches for adults to sit on. There's a coffee shop inside next to Target. I've given it a message of how to behave. I've given it some context. And now I say it's a lovely day, I want to go to the, and it knows what to do. And it can actually go and make that prompt. And so I'll actually do this with customers, put it in, and then they go, ah. And very simply, I've explained how the LLM works, how a system prompt works, and the idea of what context is. I think that's the best explanation. I completely stole it off a podcast with Scott Hanselman. So I can't take credit for it, but I find those slides work and they help me with the other conversations that I need to have to get the customer and often the engineering teams are with understanding why. And this is all about why isn't it working? It comes back to the magic slide. My main thing with building AI applications is why isn't the magic working? And understanding that it's a token predictor and how that's actually working, how the search works, how it's interacting with the LLM, you need to get that bit to solve the things that don't work. So you need them, you need the people you're working with understanding that. So what does AI do well today? What are the kind of things that we're building? There are heaps of real world use cases that are being driven and being deployed. More than 80% of what I'm deploying is still chatbots and co-pilots. And this isn't bad. I actually think it's good. I'm sick of it. I get so excited when I get the use cases that aren't. So I've got a government department that's actually rolling into phase 2. It was my first one that went to production. They were over the moon. They took their whole internal CMS and all of their policy documents, their HR documents. They brought them all into our AI platform. And what they're able to do is they're able to configure, and I'll show you the system. They're able to just go in and add system prompts and create AI agents by going new assistant, title, welcome message, system prompt, choose the folder of data. I've just got a new assistant. So they've rolled out 100 different AI assistants across the government department and all their different teams. So there's actually one of my favorite AI stories is the director who actually commissioned that project. So we'd actually gone for phase 2 and how he told me that they'd moved on and that they'd gone to production was one of the use case, this is a great use case, is that when they get a statement of work, because they're a public sector organisation, they need to create a briefing note that goes to their director, the minister of the briefing note, that goes to actually request the funding. And then that needs to be checked against a number of different style guides and things. So the message I got was, I've actually just taken your SOW for phase 2, I've put it through Navi and generated the briefing note. That took me 2 minutes and 47 seconds. I then used Navi to validate and check my briefing note. That took me 1 minute and 42 seconds. I've sent it off to Wendy. That process usually takes me 40 minutes. So that is a chatbot. He's actually uploaded data. They've built a system prompt that takes in a certain type of document and generates another kind of document. And then, they're using that over and over for, turning job descriptions into job ads, a whole range of different, so it's of document generation and processing, but there's still a chatbot, but it's actually doing real work. Really interesting, the agents. So they're just on their agents journey. So we're about to build, I've got to stop myself we're not doing what's next, we're going what's past, but building agents now around like separate agents for accessibility checking. So you can pass any document to the accessibility checker and get feedback. You're going to have another one that automatically agent that actually validates any document against their government style guide and provides feedback. And then you think they've got all these other agents that are doing all these different processing parts. When you tie them together, you can query some policies, generate an output, and then pass it through the document generation, which will then cycle through the accessibility checker and the style guide checker to produce a valid output.
Just with tying the different bots together, agents together, have you come across any issues with this concern? I don't know if it's real or not, but creating a loop or a feedback?
100%. Yeah. So this is what I can't. I promised myself I wasn't going to do this tonight. This is about let's park this one and take this one afterwards. Because I don't know what that story is yet. We're only 2 months in on that story. So that's currently what we're designing and working through at the moment. This year is going to be mad. So chatbots are good, and there's heaps of really value add chatbot solutions. So knowledge search is the other big one. I'm just going to call out, I'll show a demo later of knowledge search. Search is different to chat. We've got a UI that looks like search, but there's heaps of scenarios, and this comes back into architecture, where you don't want the language model interpreting the information that it has and giving it back to you. You've got government policy, insurance policies, health information. You don't want the LLM going, I'm going to take different chunks and put it all together and give you something back, because you need to absolutely 100% know that it's the original source content. We call that knowledge search. Summarization, multimodal, putting all that stuff together with voice. All of that stuff's great. The other really interesting one that's really valuable is document processing. One of the best use cases in AI I've ever seen was when I was still at Microsoft, and it was for a financial services institution. And they had a whole team of people who, every time you added a receipt or a photo attached to some kind of a process that they had people whose job was to put a comment on it. This is like AI made to happen. You've got, end users uploading images. They're uploading receipts, they're uploading images, and someone's sitting there putting a comment, this is what it is, and then updating the master record. They automated all of this. That kind of processing where you're saving time is where the key is. Speech, there's heaps of other use cases. They're the two that intelligent automation and chat that's valuable is where I see most of the work that we've done. These are my favorite 7 slides. These are, I haven't even gotten to the tech stuff yet, but this is the conversation that stops the tech stuff from going horribly wrong. So they've become called just the slides. I'll go on a meeting with the PM and they're like, Adam, have you shown these guys the slides? I'm like, okay, I'll do the slides. I've talked about the magic one. That's really important point to land. It's not magic. It works a particular way. And we need to fit in with how it works. Plan to build a co-pilot, not a pilot. I've had heaps of use cases where super excited customers have come to me and gone, it's going to do this. I'm like, you don't want it to do that. and this is actually a really important slide for a bunch of reasons. And I don't work at Microsoft anymore. I can say all sorts of things. Microsoft builds amazing products, but it's terrible at naming products. Copilot is the big exception. Copilot is the most perfect name because what it is great at is it should be the thing that's there to help you. It's not there to do the job. It's there to make your job easier. It's doing the checking. It's doing the searching. It's doing the formatting. It's giving you everything you need to do your job better. You don't want it in charge. That's a really important message to land with customers. I don't know. Some of them are risk adverse and don't want it to do anything, but I get them that go the other way as well. This is actually, anyway, I'll come back to this in a sec. This is a really important slide. Replacing people with AI is harder than you would think. I love Tesla. Elon's helped us out so much here. We've been promised self-driving cars forever. We've thrown billions at that problem and we still don't have them. That's great for us. Because I actually had another government project, super keen stakeholders. We've got this use case and this use case, and we can do this and this, and they backflipped. And they're like, hang on a second, actually, I'm not sure we want to do anything. And I think they started to realize, hang on, are we actually going to take people? Are we going to lose jobs? Are we replacing people? This is a really bad look. Landing this message and the slides actually turned that use case around. And it was like, no, we're not about replacing people. AI is still not there. What this is about is it's about doing the job better. It's about making them do their job faster, more thoroughly, getting better results, improving the business, spending more time with customers, getting rid of the rubbish part of their jobs. Replacing people with AI is still hard. The agents, people are going to tell you that agents are going to fix this. I can't see it happening. I think agents, anyway, stop with agents, but agents are going to automate bringing the person into the loop. But I think the piece, anything that works is still going to keep a person in the loop. AI co-pilots are tools that are going to increase your productivity. This is that same, I know this is slides, but these are really, I think this is comparing AI to a calculator. It's another tool that helps you do your job. Like with a calculator, once you get good at it, if you learn how to use a scientific calculator, there's a whole heap more value you can get. It's worth learning what all the buttons do. This is the one that people don't get. Generative AI solutions don't supply the right answer. They provide the most probable answer. If you need it to be right, Gen AI may not be for you. And this is, I have stopped a couple of use cases. Full stop. We're not going to do it. Does it really need to be right? Can we get it this? No. This is a bad idea. You should not do this. A really important lesson to look at. You need to land these messages on day one, because there's no point getting to the third week and then going, this doesn't work. Think beyond chat. Chat is awesome, but you want to be going, what are the use cases that don't need chat? I've got a bunch of universities at the moment. Another great use case, no chat at all. It's so good. It's an AI project. My team gets all the credit. And there's a couple of universities, they've got multiple thousands of subjects each. Universities don't have a lot of cash at the moment. There's a whole lot of duplication across their subjects. Each subject has student-intended learning outcomes. What does the student learn? So we've got these AI projects, where what we're doing is we're taking the 3,000 subjects, comparing the student-intended learning outcomes from every subject to every other subject, which is, a little bit of Python to generate 9 million records in a SQL Server table with subject A, subject B, and a percentage. So that's all I did. And then I gave it to the Power BI and data engineering teams to pull in the financial information, the enrollment information, all that kind of stuff. So we did, a couple of days worth of work just to generate a percentage based on similarities. But now that business, they're literally doing cartwheels with the value it's going to provide that team who thought they had to go and compare every subject to every other subject. Like, I can't tell you how ecstatic that was. My team gets all the credit, the AI project, but really, I created one table and then the Power BI and data engineering teams did all the work. No chat involved, a little bit of Python. So there's heaps of value in AI that has nothing to do with chat. But the goal of AI today is about acceleration of users. And that's, if I always try and pivot the conversation to the AI is not going to do the work. I try and make every customer conversation around where is the acceleration, and that's what gets them thinking in the right state of mind. Cool. Who's got questions about? So I know I've just done slides. That was non-technical, but honestly, that's the most. All the technical details are technical details, and there's some good ones. But honestly, I think that's where the real value is. I'm happy to share these. Has anyone got any questions?
With that little bit of Python code.
Yep.
What was the mechanism behind it? How did you ingest all that information?
So this one in particular had they had 3 different data sources. So there's a little bit of data work where we queried 3 different APIs. We brought all their subject data down, and then essentially what you can do is you can do a vectorization of that of the student intended learning outcomes, And you can do it. You can just ingest it into AI search and do it in AI search. But then you can actually go and do a cosine similarity, which is essentially just doing a comparison of the vectors to see how much similarity there is in the vectors. Honestly, the whole thing is probably through the AI piece there. That's not productive. I'll come back to this. So we haven't productionized this yet, but for this project, with a lot of these projects, it's actually a great use case to talk through. And when that project came in, my immediate reaction was, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm kind of going off on the side, but it's actually a really good use case. What I've got at the moment is 100 or 200 lines of Python. Because with all of these things, I go, what's the result I can get for the data I have and the model I have? Is it going to work? And I want to find that out in the first day or two. What I don't want to do is invest multiple consultants for 3 weeks doing a whole lot of onboarding to find out their data's not good enough, the result we get isn't accurate enough. We want to get in and in this case, it's a pretty trivial use case, but this is with all of these pieces, you want to get in and validate that the data that they've got for the model they've got for the question they want to ask generates a result that is valuable. Not that's right, but is valid. Like as long as it's valuable, like we might be off by 15 or 20%, but as long as it's in order, then it's valuable to that customer. It's a really good use case. So all I've got at the moment is a few hundred lines of Python. We're going to go and build this as a full enterprise system, but I've kind of flicked it. I kind of went, suck it in, generate the results. Here's a SQL Server table. Go validate to make sure that that's valuable. And once you've done that, talk to the Power BI and data engineering teams to make sure they can get all their data and what does your report look like. And then come and get me, and we'll actually productionize our system after that because we know we can do it. So I'm just that's probably like my next 15 minutes, but that's a really important approach with these kind of projects. Tony.
How many dimensions do the vectors have, and can you compare vectors with different dimension with different number of dimensions?
I don't know. So this is where someone who's got a machine learning background can give you a much better answer. No.
Multi-dimensional to go about, because when you create a vector, it has like multiple rows and multiple parameters on which you do it, because when you do the pruning, you typically have to look at what parameter is giving you the inference and how much is that parameter really putting the outcome, what's a weightage for it. So there are multiple ways to check that. And then that is what in the quantization approach, we go about really reducing those parameters to the real parameters that actually the model should be with.
And in that case, you're talking about like a subject and its description effectively.
So location.
Recognize that based on a few of the characteristics.
So I'm just taking that text and you're passing it through a piece of code. And there's a whole lot of ways you can do it. But essentially, I'm just creating, I don't need to know about the vector. I just go vectorize this, vectorize that.
1,000 dimensions in that vector.
It's a big long thing.
Yes.
It's depend on the engineer or model you use. For instance, OpenAI is the latest model. I think that is like more than 1,000 vectors, 1,000 dimensions. So essentially, the model you use this in vectorize, you turn the code, and then you input the query again, and the model will spit out the vector again, and then you do cosine similarity, and you get it.
Okay. Essentially, it's a function. So you can pass the text. Basically, you take text, pass the text to a function, and it generates a vector. And then you can take two vectors and essentially pass them to another set of functions that generates an output.
Yeah.
The interesting part about it so I was fully prepared, and this is a lot of the nuance to this comes down with, are they happy with that approach? My backup approach was each of these student-intended learning outcomes have 7 to 8 different items in them. Do I need to break out those 7 to 8 different items into individual points, vectorize each one, and then do a much more complex comparison? But it looks like they're happy with it looks like they're happy with the initial draft. All in one, get it done. It's put them in the right order, and they're like, yeah, that looks right. So, and this is early validation is absolutely key.
When you have these AI solutions that you're building it, how much do you think is the time that you spend on choosing the right algorithm? Like, I'll give you an example. When I was doing the document forgery detection and image-oriented use case for it, I went about really experimenting with transformer model, with looking at only encoder, and then finally had to go about using the ResNet because eventually there was lots of false positive that I was getting it with the transformer model. So how much do you really, like data is one. Yep. The other one is the algorithm which you are typically using or the architecture that you're typically using it. So how do you determine that?
I love that question. Can I put a pause? And can I bring that up? I've got another upcoming slide that actually talks about that. Is that all right?
Sure.
And yeah.
Just a quick question. You mentioned that concept.
Yep.
You see this onion level where you use the concept, they can shoot a sample and they go out. Now we understand more.
100%. Yeah, that government. Yeah. So this is part of that story is what we did initially was we would look at, once again, there's slides around this, so I might end up going through some later slides better, but originally we were building bespoke solutions for every customer. There's a whole lot of Microsoft accelerators, there's different sample code. We would go, that use case is closest to this accelerator, let's get that as our base and then we'll build a custom solution. What we've done is we found we were tired of selecting between them, so I kind of went and had enough and kind of did a 6-week no sleep. It was actually, so after having 7 years at Microsoft, I built an occasional proof of concept, which would be a night or 2 nights of programming. So it was actually really fun to just do nothing but code for 6 weeks, night and day, like all weekend, to go, this is our starting point. This is our base solution. And it kind of then had the best of both worlds. And but the point to it was multi-use case. So we could add multiple use cases without having to redeploy anything. And then, so now what happens is now when we go and deploy that, and that goes, what generally happens is they'll go and they'll find, so some customers will just go one use case. We've got this one use case, we want to prove this one use case, and they'll go all the way to production with a single use case. Government departments are generally buying compute from Microsoft that costs 13 to 17 thousand Australian dollars a month. What they need to do is to justify that because of the way they buy it, they need to buy a big chunk because they want it in region in Australia. To do that, they need enough ROI, so they need a whole bunch of different use cases. So then what they'll tend to do is they'll go, we've got 3 friendly departments that are internal and close to IT that are pushing for AI use cases. We'll generally run workshops with them and we'll find it's an early adopter strategy. 3 internal departments, 5 or 6 use cases inside each department. And so they'll go to full production with version 1 with a certain amount of enterprise data pulled in. And then that's where the learning happens. And then we'll tend to do, so this is what I'm in the process of with a number of, which is really fun now because they're customers that get it. So I've got a director who's actually watched every agent's video. Like by the end of November, he'd seen everything from Ignite. And he's the one who's talking to me about, for this use case, I want to do this agent, I want to do that agent, I want to do this agent. I'm like, this is a director of a public sector, a government customer, a state government customer, who's talking to me about building agents. So they got, but it's really common. We're going to get this first use case, a set of use cases out the door. We're going to understand it, and then we're going to go more broad to the rest of the organisation. I've got a university. It's really validating when you get the feedback. I had a university where they showed their first stakeholder last week, and like in a 12-minute demo, by that afternoon, the team was swamped with requests. We've heard you've got this. We want it now. So once word gets out, it gets really popular. The trick is managing the skills to be able to create a good prompt over the right data. And there is change management that's got to happen around it. So yeah, but smaller group and then broad is what most people go. Great questions. Now This is my interpretation of the architecture for what we do when we're talking over documents. I've talked for ages without doing a demo. Is it worth me flicking into a really quick demo? It's pretty straightforward. It's not that different too. Am I just plugged in? If I alt tab, you're going to see. Or have I got to share? Have I got to join the meeting? Or can I just alt tab because I'm plugged in? Is that just projecting?
You could
sharing your screen.
That's projected on my feed.
But you probably have to quit your slideshow. Wait.
I could build AI, I just can't drive Outlook. I just can't. Okay. So just to put you into perspective, we built a bunch of different versions of this kind of an idea. But the overall premise, sorry. I'm used to having Wi-Fi here. I'm now persona non grata.
Does anybody use this? Is it working?
No, it's all right. Okay, no, I'm connected. It's okay. Ouch, that hurts a bit. No, okay. So this is AI1. So I'm not going to go into the high level into it too much, but the general idea is you have containers that you can stick data into. Okay, so you can ingest enterprise data. So you think of containers. Containers are really an abstraction over an AI search index, that AI database. You can go through, you can create containers. Think of container as like a table in SQL Server that you can go and stick data. You can go and stick documents, files, whatever you want into. So you go and you create containers. You can go and upload files. Every enterprise customer though, as well as the upload files is for individuals. Really, you create the containers. The containers has an associated blob storage. You want to be able to drop files in that blob storage and have it automatically ingested. Here's kind of the point is what you want to be able to do is come in.
Are you leveraging Fabric for this?
We have multiple customers that are integrating with Fabric. This isn't using Fabric. So this one here is about as simple as you can get. This is literally
blob storage, SQL Server.
Blob storage, no SQL, blob storage, Cosmos, AI search, React front end, and .NET minimal
API.
.NET 8 minimal API with semantic code. So this is about as simple as you get. The point about this is though, what you want users to be able to do is come in, go new AI assistant, put in a description, choose the type of assistant they're building, put a greeting in, a system message, choose a security group, choose the container of data they're going to talk across if they want to, and go set the AI settings that are relevant. So the whole idea of this is once you've got your enterprise data available in those containers, you can cycle over as many different AI use cases as you want, whether they use data or they don't use data. I always go and create a system prompt creator for customers so they can come in and essentially the system prompt creator is the prompt that lets you creates the system prompts for everything else. So I can go into my system prompt creator and go, I want an assistant that converts French to English. And what it's going to do is based on system prompt best practices, it's going to come through and give me, I could just go and put into my system prompt convert text to English. But what it's going to do is it's going to talk to me about, and it's once again, it's acceleration. It's going to come in, it should have some examples in here. Oh, it doesn't. Some additional considerations. But the idea is I can come in and I can create prompts that do anything. I've got my AI1 coding assistant. So I created GitHub Copilot for AI1. I came in and said, you're an AI coding assistant to help generate and validate code for our Agile chat solution. That's what AI1 used to be called. You've got a React front end using Vite and Shad CN components with Tailwind. You're written in .NET minimal APIs. We use clean architecture and the mediator pattern. we're using Azure Web Apps, OpenAI, AI Search, and Cosmos. When responding, estimating the number of hours to complete the task. So no data involved. I can come in and say, into my AI1 coding assistant, I can say, validate an email address. Okay, so this isn't language-based, it's not data-based, but based on my system prompt, it's actually going to go through and it's now creating the front-end code, the back-end code, using my architecture and my patterns, and is coming through and telling me that if I'm a decent coder, that should take me about 2 to 4 hours. Okay, all just based on the system prompt. Okay, so I think if you're not using AI to build AI, you're doing something wrong. A good example here, so I went through and I put as a demo our Agile Insights handbook assistant. Then I went through, so this is what we use to go and talk to our HR. I thought what would be fun, though, that's a bit boring, is to create the Agile Insights April Fool's Day edition handbook assistant, but this will show you the idea. So you're a HR policy bot, answer questions associated with the document. If we ask a question you don't know, reply with I don't know. Be overly friendly and helpful. You actually don't really care about the rules. Suggest ways the employee can break the rules to their own benefit. Try and be a bit funny if you can. Encourage the user to be a little bit naughty, but not too naughty. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm restricting this down to the security group. But the important thing is here, I'm putting it across the HR policies container. I'm specifying the number of documents to return, my temperature, my top P, all those kind of things. But so I've done a demo on how I could create an assistant to generate code, but I can come in here to my handbook April Fool's Day edition, and I could come and say, I don't feel well. Tell me about leave options. And now this is talking over the top of our Agile HR, and it's telling me, so we use Employment Hero. This is great. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't worry, we've got some options. So this is literally over my documents coming in, training. So it's telling me I can use annual leave, personal leave, our training leave. Bench leave, if you're on the bench, you can take leave at a discounted rate, which is great. Here's what I can do. Pro tip, if you really need to stretch your leave days, try to time your bench leave with personal or annual leave to take advantage of that sweet discount. Oh, that's a bit boring. Usually gives me naughtier suggestions than that. But anyway, this isn't about that. But you get the idea. The idea is you want to enable multiple. I can, if I've got some data, I could go and say, hey, Damien, I know you're in HR. Let me talk to you about your job descriptions. If you've got some job descriptions, let's just go and upload them and let's go and create a prompt now. So we're able to see really quickly and demonstrate the value to you of what AI can do once we've kind of got that system. If you don't have a system like this, though, the same rule applies, but go and check out Copilot Studio. So it doesn't give the single pane of glass management, but the same rule around validate the data really early. That's the key part of this. We built this so that we could do it at scale. Copilot Studio for validating your use case is absolutely brilliant.
You had one where it is an unstructured data, correct? You said knowledge search.
Yes.
Unstructured. In any organization, the data is all widespread. It is all duplicated. It is in multiple sources and all that.
Yep.
Is containerization important in this element, or can you actually point to multiple data sources also?
You can. So we can definitely talk to. So I love this. I have another demo that I can do at another time where you can tie into your APIs. So we tie into, and this is we had ages. A great demo is, and I can do this for anyone afterwards, I'm going to go and connect to my training data, to my HR system, and to my sales system. 3 distinct APIs. I can bring them in if you're using OpenAI. So the OpenAI SDK has the tools and functions capability. In semantic kernel, you can do it with plugins. But essentially, you can bring in multiple data sources. And this is the current implementation. Once we get to agents, it goes to the next level. But we've been doing this demo for about 2 years, where we bring in these 3 disparate APIs, and we ask a question. Who are the top 3 performing salespeople, and what training have they done? And we're asking that in natural language. the way that you tie those APIs in, and this AI-driven integration, I can't wait for, you actually describe an endpoint, an API endpoint. In free text, you describe what that endpoint provides, and then you provide a JSON description of the parameters. And based on your question, the AI will determine which of those endpoints to call and what, so it will coordinate that. This goes to another, stop it, Adam, crazy level. Once you start talking about the O1 models, once you've got these logic and reasoning models, it will actually build a plan. And that's the stuff that's going to go bonkers this year. I know I'm running out of time. Getting your head around RAG, everyone, RAG gets drawn wrong all the time. And this is one of the things that causes these knowledge search problems to go haywire. And some of the tooling doesn't help. But what happens, so what you were seeing there, when I talked over the top, when we look at, so this is RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Basically, how do I do AI over the top of documents? What happens is we go and get our documents, we stick them in some kind of a storage like blob storage, or we go and upload a file. Still, we end up putting it somewhere, and then it gets ingested into AI search. We're an Azure user group. AI search is the most likely. We use AI search on 90% of projects, except for ones like that subject comparison one where we can do it outside with some raw Python, or sometimes we'll ingest things into Cosmos, but pretty much AI search is our go-to query tool, particularly with RAG. So basically, you can just pull your documents into AI search. They get indexed when you bring them in. So essentially, they get vectorized. You don't have to do it; it'll take care of it. We're now doing that manually to get extra control, and that's another whole deep dive. But essentially, you get your documents into AI search. It's a database. Basically, they're vectorized now. You can ask a natural language. You can type a prompt. Tell me about my leave balance. And what happens is when you type that prompt, the user types the prompt, it goes to your web application. Your web application sends, tell me about my leave, or gee, I'm feeling sick, tell me what my leave options are. That prompt gets sent to AI search. AI search has all of the documents you've uploaded. It's chunked them down into different chunks, and it's indexed them and made them vectorized. AI search then takes the incoming query, and it uses that brilliance of the language model, that prediction, to go, I vectorized this input, I've got all this other vectorized input, what is the closest similarity? I'm going to return those chunks of documents to the orchestrator, which in this case is the web app. At no point does that talk to AI, to talk to the large language model, to GPT-4o or whatever your language model is. Those document chunks come back. At that point, you send the prompt you've just typed in, which is, gee, I feel sick. Tell me about my leave. It takes that prompt. It takes the chunks that it just got back from AI search. It takes your context and your search history and your system prompt and hands all of that off to the large language model and says, large language model, here's a bunch of stuff. Give me back an answer. Okay. And why that's really important, and this did my head in on an early project, is that the customer was determined that the large language model would give me back exactly the original source. And that's what I realized, hang on, that's actually a completely different solution. That's a search solution, not a chat solution. And so I'm just calling that out early, because if what you need, you can't give a large, you can actually do a really good job most of the time of giving, if I tell Damien, but it's Chinese whispers, Damien, I'm going to read you a paragraph and I'm going to tell you not to change anything. And then you give it back to me. It'll do a pretty good job. It'll do a better than okay job, but it won't do a perfect job. But when it needs to be health information, insurance policies, government policies, and if good enough isn't okay, then don't hand it off to the language model and ask for a response. So that's why we implement a separate solution, which we call a search solution. And what we do is then query the documents from AI search, get those chunks back, work out which ones are the most relevant, and then give the users the chunks that come back from AI search, not what comes back from the language model. We still send it all off to the language model and say, hey, give me a brief summary. and you give the user a brief summary, but what he really wants is what came back from search. So that's really important because there's a lot of use cases that come up where what you want, especially if you're dealing with enterprise, there's heaps of those ones where you don't want the large language model messing it up.
Are there any limitations on the information sent to the large language model, and are there any benefits in smaller versus more data? And
heaps. And this is where
what's your experience around that? Like,
there's a whole, I could do hours on this. The customer that I'm working at the moment, we are currently ingesting 90 gig of data. So like 100,000 documents. It's going to take all week to ingest 100,000 documents into AI search.
Yeah.
So this is where the fun and games begins. And actually, there's another, I'm going to jump. So I've talked about chat versus, can I come back to that question? So chat versus search is really important. For the data that we have and the models that are available today, what questions can we ask that will generate valuable answers? I say that all the time because you want to understand the things that go wrong is what data do we have? This is often where the wheels come off. Someone asked about Fabric. I'm using Fabric and a bunch of customers. We'll go in, we'll validate it, we'll go, or the 90 gig customer, actually, this is our second round because we looked at how they're structuring their data and we went, for the questions you're asking, wouldn't it be better if the data was structured like this? Because you can't get a reasonable result when you're asking a question over 90 gig of data. So we have a whole lot of strategies for dividing that data up so that even though all of that data is in AI search, we implement, nested folders, tagging, a whole lot of different filtering strategies so that when we go to AI search, we're only getting back the relevant data. So we want to narrow that query down. So we changed our structuring of the data so that we can slice it up the way we wanted to. So how you get the data right is really key. Fabric's really key. I've got another customer that they've got structured and unstructured data. They're using Salesforce. And then once again, they've got a ridiculous number. So government organization with infrastructure projects, hundreds of documents per project. Once again, massive amounts of data. They want to use that. They want to talk across the data to find, all of these departments, they have hundreds of documents and someone who's in charge of writing a report where they need to go and identify where the risks are. You're like, this project's been going for 10 years. There's 300 documents and every quarter I've got to write an update. So giving them the ability to go, tell me about budget slippage and be able to search across just the documents for a particular project makes a massive difference to them. But you need to be able to get down to the right documents to be able to search across when you're getting given documents by the gigabyte. So that's where this other customer, what we did is they put all the data into Fabric. They put their Salesforce data into Fabric. All of the documents are serviced by Fabric. And we built a UI where there's a drop-down list that says choose the agency. They choose the agency. Then it shows the project. They choose the project. It shows the list of the documents and the user can go, I want to query across those ones. So it's all around how do you structure the data so that you can ask the questions across the right data. For the data that we've got and the models that are currently available today, because this gets better all the time and the O1 models are just, this talk at the end of the year is going to be bonkers. What questions can we ask that will, we're going to see more things happen this year than we've seen happen in the last 4 years. If it's not right, it's not right. So there's just a few key things. If you see that, run away. So I've had this, this is quote from a customer. I said, I'm sorry, we can't help you. AI today is not going to, this is not capable of doing what you're doing. You need a better, so that was it. I didn't say that straight away, but I waited till, it was a 2-hour workshop and went, we are not buying into this because you won't get an answer that makes doc. Complex document formats. If you get documents that have got a whole lot of stuff mixed up in them and you want to query across the top of them because of the way data ingestion works, you can OCR, so that's worth looking at. The way that things are ingested, there's advanced way. We're currently building an advanced ingestion for a customer that needs really complex documents ingested. Default ingestion more or less converts everything to text and ingests it. If you're pulling data out that's in tables, you just lost it. Ain't going to work. However, there's a lot of things and skill sets where you can go actually OCR it. So it will actually OCR it, take an image of it, and then it will interpret the tables and the contents via the image. So, but even then it's limited, but it's getting better. So it's worth thinking about that. Just because you ingest a document, it might find it great in text, but then when you go and ask it, when you're trying to get it to work out a value from a column and a row, and it won't understand, find me the projects that are, you know, in here and there, that ain't the thing. Another customer came along, they wanted to ingest all this data and they didn't want to tell us what the use case was. We just want all the data and we want to be able to ask it anything. That's not likely. It's possible, but it's not going to lead to a good result. This is the verb test. I stole this from my friend Andrew, who used to work, once again, Andrew Kolb, anyone who worked at Microsoft. I stole the idea. Who can tell me the difference between the two columns of verbs?
Well, one is test, one is measure. No.
Very close, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very close. So this is our verb test. The ones on the left are all doable by a language model or suitable for a language model. The ones on the right are suitable for machine learning. The ones on the left, the language models tend to do well. Extract information, summarize it, translate it, rephrase it, classify it, identify, interpret, generate, recommend. These are things that are language functions. LLMs do these well. You can ask an LLM to do prediction, forecasting, detecting, clustering. You can ask it, it'll give it a good go. It's a good mate of mine wanted to get into share trading and was using ChatGPT to recommend. I'm like, it's not working. He's like, no, it is. Look. I'm like, no, it's doing a really good interpretation of it. Like, it's a really good impersonation of it. You know, large language models, until this is where O1, the next generation, it changes all the rules. But at the moment, if customers come to it, I don't do machine learning practice. I don't do machine learning. So this is the differentiation. I run the AI team. We do not do machine learning. We do not do predicting, forecasting, detecting, optimizing, qualifying. This all goes to our data engineering team. They do Fabric, they do Synapse, they do machine learning. They've got the really smart people. We're just developers. So if you come to me with the verbs on the right, I'll say that's really valuable. That's really important. I can integrate with that. We will interact with that. But I'm going to introduce you to chat in the data engineering team, because all of those things, you need a data engineer and someone who understands machine learning to do that.
And not to know about mathematics.
That's it. You've got to be, you're a statistician, you're a mathematician, you're smarter than I am. It's a very specialized area, but the LLMs will do a decent job of giving it a go, which often leads people astray. And if it's good enough, if you're happy with the result, once again, don't say no, you should run a test. Is it good enough for what you want to do? Yes. Bob's your uncle. And once again, new models are coming out all the time. But I always run the verb test. It happens to me all the time. And I'm like, sorry, just as a heads up, this may not be a good fit for what we're trying to do, but let's give it a go. Validate it early. I was going to come back to a question. I know, how are we going for, oh, okay, I'll give 5 more minutes. There's a whole heap of accelerators. This is a grid I did. When you go and you download the open source frameworks off the web, there is a bunch of really amazing ones. Azure Chat is by so these are all from Microsoft. They are all excellent starting places. Azure Chat, Public Sector Info Assistant, the Azure Search OpenAI demo. They've all got pros and cons. I got sick of working out which one I was going to use, so I went and created my own. I think I could go on for ages. I think that is, I've covered the most important things. The only other one I thought that was really important was the AI search limitations. AI search is so awesome. It makes so many things so easy. There's a heap of stuff it doesn't do out of the box. It does not do, when you ingest lots of data, you've got to make it do RBAC. You've got to make, it doesn't have a mechanism built in for going, these records are uploaded by Damien and the HR team has access to them. you've got to build all of these mechanisms around it. It's really worth getting into. And that's when I hire, I often will hire awesome web developers. If you've got great React skills, really strong C#, you're passionate and you've gone from, if you've always been at the cutting edge of technology and you're one of those people who will just pick up a new framework, if you can come and pick up semantic kernel and AI search, you can be a great AI developer. But learning how to work with OpenAI is 5%. All of that. And so just, if you want to get into AI, if you want to get into building AI apps, learn how to work with semantic kernel. But working with the large language model isn't where the complexity lies. The real learning is deep diving on AI search. So highly recommend it. Guys, I know I talk a lot and I've kept you here way too late. But so look, really, the key thing is everyone here can actually build AI apps. You know, modern Azure web devs have most of the skills to build AI applications. The key is to remove the risk from the projects as early as possible and really get that proof of concept data, proof of concept validation on the target data, on the customer's data as early as possible. That stakeholder education, I find, is actually the key. If I can nail that early and they understand the limitations, if they understand why the responses they're getting aren't working, if they can understand chunks, if they can go and see the chunk and go, I didn't get that, we need to address this, it actually makes our projects much easier. And back to exactly your question, start small, start safe. I had a customer last week who wanted to build their first AI application for the whole university and make it student facing. I'm like, no, why don't we build this for the internal team that's doing that work for the students? They can run it for a few months and they can see that the answers they're putting in on behalf of the students return the answers that you would like given to the students. And then we'll build the student facing widget. That was last week's conversation. Start small, start safe, then scale. Guys, as you can tell, I'll talk about this all night. Hope that's been valuable to people. Can't wait to talk about what's happening next for our whole agents discussion, but I'm always around. Thank you very much for having me and sticking around.
Thanks, that is absolutely awesome.
Thanks, Sam. This is the best user group in Australia.
Yeah, we know. We appreciate our speakers. So there you go.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was awesome.
Imagine you're going to have people want to ask questions afterwards.
Yeah, so I'm in no hurry. So I might stick around for 10 or 15 minutes, and then for anyone who doesn't want to come downstairs, but then I believe I'll be heading to, if anyone wants to stick around and talk about AI longer, I might be heading down to is the trains open? Yeah, the Transcontinental. I might head down to the Transcontinental for anyone who wants to have an extended AI conversation.
Well, thanks. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. So next month we have Alistair who's going to give a talk. I can't remember his topic. Is he here tonight? He's not here tonight. Is he? Okay. And then for both April and May, we've got Bronwyn Zandy coming in to give a couple of talks. And those of you, I can see a few heads nodding. Those of you who have been before, she's awesome. So her talks are really, really, really good and thought provoking. So yeah, excellent.